Hello and welcome to the Friday Total Soccer Show. I am Daryl Grove, and sitting across the table from me is a man who, unlike Metallica, does not like to ride the lightning. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, I don't think Metallica are doing a lot of lightning riding anymore these days. It's more of gentle therapy sessions.
Well, we were avoiding the lightning on Wednesday night. Our Richmond Kickers versus Charleston Battery game. We were on commentary duties. Wasn't cancelled immediately.
Yeah.
It was halted in the 19th minute, and then lightning bolts got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was eventually cancelled.
When you say we were avoiding it, though, we kind of did it first, and then we sort of forgot that we were on a thunder and lightning delay, because we were absolutely standing on metal bleachers in the giant metal stand that was completely abandoned, so we were probably the tallest point in that stand, just hanging out. Easily could have been hit by lightning at any given moment.
Maybe we would have been riding the lightning.
In that case, yes.
And cameraman Joey got a great shot of lightning over City Stadium.
Yep.
Just a reminder that soccer, USL soccer, in August in Richmond is a dangerous game.
Yep, a little bit. You got the Red Army, you got humidity, you got heat waves, you got lightning.
All those things come together.
Yep, it can be a problem.
So we won't be talking USL today. We will be talking some MLS. We're going to preview the big Portland v Seattle game, which is happening this Sunday, 9:30 Eastern on Fox Sports 1. Later in the show, we're going to do what to watch this weekend and why, as recommended by listeners on Twitter. We're going to answer listener questions about the golden era of soccer and what's going on with Olympic soccer.
Is that the question we're actually going to answer?
More or less, yeah. So should we start with that Portland-Seattle game, Tyler?
Yeah, let's do
so
it.
We've split this up. We're each going to end up with a specific prediction each. I'm going to have one for Seattle. You're going to have one for Portland.
This is correct.
But let's set this game up, because we haven't dipped our toe into MLS in terms of previewing a game for a good while, so let's do this one.
Alrighty.
Why are we doing this one?
Why are we doing this one?
Yeah.
Well, because it's kind of a big one.
Just because it always is?
Yeah, I mean, it's
that rivalry,
it's a big derby. It's the big rivalry. Usually, I'd say it's also two teams near the top of the standings. In this case, not so much, because as things stand right now, Portland in 6th place, 32 points. Seattle 9th, as you said, 27 points. So those two games in hand could make a big difference for Seattle.
And form-wise, I feel like Portland on a little bit of a slide, struggling to win away from home.
Have not won this season away from home.
So their last away win was when they lifted MLS Cup.
Pretty much, yeah. 0 wins, 6 draws, 6 losses.
And Seattle, after the firing of Ziggy Schmidt, are on a 3-game unbeaten streak, a 2-game winning streak under Coach Brian Schmetzer, and Nicolas Lodero is lighting it up. Here's why this game is weirdly more exciting to me with the teams lower down the table.
Tell me why.
Because if it's 3rd and 4th, there's a feeling that, all right, you're jostling for like higher places, like in terms of seeding in the playoff, but you're probably going to make the playoffs, right?
Yep.
This is like Seattle need to go on a pretty good winning streak to actually make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Portland need to halt the slide and make sure they stay above the red line.
Yep.
There's weirdly more at stake because they're lower down the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're coming to that time of the year where it starts to get important.
Yeah, and there's also an element of, like, once you get to the playoffs, then obviously there's bragging rights and you can kind of talk trash. But if there's a situation in which, like, Seattle goes on this winning streak, jumps Portland gets knocked out of the playoffs, or Portland keeps Seattle from making the playoffs, that's a much bigger deal and a much bigger talking point for this season and next season.
And speaking of, these two teams play each other again next weekend, right? Portland hosts next weekend, and if Seattle wins both these games, they will jump ahead of Portland.
Yep.
So there's an opportunity here for the Seattle Sounders to really, really rub it in.
Yes, and I think they've got a decent chance to do so. That said, I'm going to be doing the preview prediction for Portland, but it seems like from everything I've read, from everything I've heard, Portland in a state of flux, not just what we talked about with a lack of like consistent results, but also a lack of a consistent formation. So against DC United, they started the half with a 4-4-2 in the first half, conceded 2 goals in the first half, changed it back to that 4-3-3. Did the opposite against Sporting KC, but I think
is this because of Diego Chara?
It's a big part of that.
He was sent off, and then he's missing, and so you have to sort of maybe move things around to try and figure things out without Chara, who's so important as that holding midfielder, right?
Exactly, because once you lose him doing all the defensive work, we know
definitely
we can
not
do.
American, right?
He is not.
I like to check every time just to make sure.
It has not changed yet. Yes, he's still Colombian. So with him out, because he does all of that defensive work, you kind of don't have a like-for-like replacement. Really, I don't. Much like Gary Bertier, there is no other Diego Chara. That's a fun reference from the mid-90s. So you basically have to do what Caleb Porter did and change things up tactically. He's also trying to get Jack Mack and Fernando Adi in the lineup together. That was ostensibly why you go with a 4-4-2. Did not work against DC. I do not think he'll go with it against Seattle.
Yeah, I basically read that. I read, I think, a quote from Porter that if you're going to play Jack Mack and Fernando Adi, you sort of have to go two up front because Jack Mack can't be one of the attacking or wide midfielders, right?
Yeah.
And I think he said, don't put a square peg in a round hole, just make some more square holes.
And Adi cannot smash from the left wing, so he's got to be in that box. But I think the larger issue for Portland is the defense.
Oh, yes, I forgot about all this, yeah.
So obviously Nat Borchers, friend of the show, follows us on Twitter, which means he's a friend of the show.
All right.
Yeah, it's Twitter plus beard equals good friend. But has the ruptured Achilles, is out for the remainder of the season, so he has not been playing. So it's been Liam Ridgewell, as we've seen, and then I'm expecting it to be Stephen Taylor making his debut, against Seattle.
So I heard Stephen Taylor joined and isn't properly match fit, but he's getting there.
No, it's now he is match fit.
Right.
Now Caleb Porter says he can do the full 90, but maybe he can't do 92. Who knows? But I think it's more about is he team fit? Does he fit the system and what they want to do?
Because there is a thing where you can be your lungs and legs can go 90 minutes, but maybe your brain is not in gear for actual competitive action.
Exactly.
And then to throw you into the Cascadia Derby first game on artificial turf for maybe the first time in his life, I think that's a big deal.
Well, see, you could make the counter argument, aside from the artificial turf, that you could say, if it's a guy coming into a situation where he is used to, Stephen Taylor played in the Premier League, has that big game experience, so maybe you could make the argument that he's not emotionally invested in the Portland-Seattle rivalry, so he comes in and it's just it's loud fans, that's great. It doesn't have that emotional impact that it might on people who've been in the league who know how much those two fan bases don't necessarily enjoy each other.
Yeah.
But I think the artificial turf point is a big point that it takes some getting used to, and then
think you've got it, but it's such a subtle difference, and that's the brilliant thing about artificial turf, right?
Yeah.
That it is really close to grass.
Yeah.
But it's the weird thing is it's such a subtle difference that it's hard to adjust for because you don't know what you don't know what the difference is because it's so hard to see.
Yeah, I mean, and then the ball bounces differently. The ball moves faster, especially if it's raining or wet. You're going to have to navigate that minefield. So actually, my prediction is going to be Seattle will get at least one clear-cut opportunity from poor center back play, or from just reading the ball wrong, not getting to it, a lack of communication between the two center backs. Because I do think it will be Taylor at center back with Ridgewell.
It will be Taylor. It could be Jermaine Taylor.
Yeah, that's also
he's
possible.
The guy that's been playing centre back. And isn't Ridgewell just coming back from injury?
He is, and looked not very good against DC, is how I'm going to put that gently. So you've got, it's because you don't even have him as he's your proven veteran, he's been there, he's your DP, he knows what he's doing. Even Liam Ridgewell is sort of he's kind of looking a little bit shaky right now. But maybe that tightens up. I know Portland fans will be hoping that it does for this game.
So you're banking on some defensive confusion, like a ball skipping too fast for Stephen Taylor. It's what?
Yeah.
And what are all these black pellets? What's going on there?
Well, it's that combined with just that sort of pressure. The pressure starts to build. And I think of these two teams, even though Portland are ahead in the standings, more pressure's on Seattle. Playing at home, have to get the result, have to get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Portland, though, on this skid against heated rivals where you could sort of see that, oh no, this isn't working, oh no, this isn't working, and you start to get a little bit of that panic, and it becomes a quicksand game.
All right, so for Seattle, the story is obviously Ziggy Schmid's dismissal. I'm not sure it was phrased as such, right? It was a we parted ways kind of deal, but he was essentially fired. Brian Schmetzer took over 3 games ago, has not been beaten. The big change is Nicolas Lodeiro came in, the Uruguayan, has been playing on the right, making things happen. I think he's got 3 assists and 1 goal in 3 games, which is incredible.
And he's endeared himself to Seattle fans because the scouting report we got on Jordan Morris mentioned Lodeiro, calls him Nico. So he's already got the abbreviated name. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael, for that scouting report. There's also, he was already throwing fish in the fish market before he'd even played. He got the shoe celebration. If you haven't seen this, just Google Nicolas Lodeiro shoe celebration when he answers the phone with his shoe. So convincing. I feel like he could be sort of an improv actor. I actually believe
or he's a spy.
I believed it was connected.
He's got a shoe phone. I've seen those in the DC Spy Museum. Maybe that's what's going on.
I've been there as well.
Yep.
Actually pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Recommend it.
That's a ringing endorsement.
Well, no, I'm always skeptical of museums. I'm always ready for them to be disappointing. That's one that didn't disappoint.
I'll say while we're on this tangent, the only thing that was a little bit disconcerting was, so when you begin, if you've never been there, you go into this room where you have to walk around a room and you have all these people's pictures and backgrounds, and you have to choose a person and memorize their background. And the way they introduce that, you think that there's going to be people randomly coming up to you and be like, who are you? And then you have to, you don't realize that it's going to be a leisurely, you can do it if you want to. Yeah. So I really was I don't want to get yelled at for not knowing who I am. So I really memorized that stuff, and I was on point, and then no one asked me about that for the rest of the tour.
You are such a wonderful nerd in terms of doing your research. I can see you working really hard to get your story down.
Man, you know what happens to spies? I'm not trying to get caught.
All right, back to the game.
Yeah.
The thing I thought about Nicolas Lodeiro is really weirdly unfair on Ziggy Schmidt that he's come in and lit it up post Ziggy Schmidt, when I believe Schmidt was involved in the recruitment of Ladero.
I think that was a player that he was actively recruiting and hoping to get,
But to give Schmidt his credit, the big thing he's done is switched Seattle up to a 4-2-3-1. Right, so now Ozzie Alonso has some help alongside him in Roldan in midfield. So from what I saw, I think he had 13 ball recoveries in Seattle's last game. You know, he's doing that defensive midfield work again. It's Ozzie of old.
Speaking of people who still aren't Americans, Ozzie Alonso. Yeah.
I don't know if he may have his citizenship. I actually don't know the answer to that, but I think he still needs permission from Cuba to switch teams. And also, I think he's at a point in his career where it's maybe too late. Right?
Do we think that Obama reestablished relations with Cuba just so that he could get Ozzie Alonso?
I think that was part of the plan,
Yeah, I think so. I'm all right with
that. Then ahead of those two, you've got the 3-1. You've got Ladero on the right. It's been Ivanchitz on the left. Clint Dempsey in behind a striker.
I like it.
And that striker has been Jordan Morris. Jordan Morris is the pacey point of the Seattle Spear right now. He's not playing on the wing. He's just playing up front, making those runs in behind. I'm really excited to see this. And I think every US national team fan should be excited to watch Jordan Morris do this. I guess unless you're a Portland fan. Then it's not so exciting to watch him run behind defences when that ball skips off the artificial turf.
Probably not. And I'm really excited because I was not so big on his decision to move to Seattle because it seemed like
you were Team Bremen.
Well, it was that combined with it just didn't seem like he was developing that well. It didn't seem like, like to the start of the season he looked a little bit rough around the edges.
That would have happened at Bremen as well, I'm sure.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. It just seemed like he fell behind a little bit, and it seems like now maybe it's a relationship with Ladero. Maybe it's just playing in a different position where he's a bit more comfortable. But it does seem like he is scoring goals, getting those good assists for Clint Dempsey, and kind of becoming a better all-around player, even if that means he's still only using one foot.
Well, there's my prediction. My prediction is Jordan Morris will be involved in a Seattle goal, and a specific part of Jordan Morris, this is a specific prediction, the outside of Jordan Morris's right foot will be involved in a Seattle goal. That could be he scores with the outside of his foot, or maybe he puts a pass through for Dempsey, Ivanchitz, or Ladero with the outside of his foot. So if you're not too familiar with Morris, he is heavily one-footed, right? All his right foot. Times when other players would play a pass with their left foot or would shoot with their left foot, he will instead use the outside of his right. And I keep sort of criticising him for it, but it seems super effective. And, Diego Maradona was very one-footed and he did fine. So it may be we just have to accept this is how Jordan Morris operates, and this is the limitation, but it's also his strength.
I mean, there's definitely an argument to be made for if you can do it well enough that it doesn't become a hindrance, then it's not a problem. Like, again, Antonio Valencia comes to mind, where clearly is only going to play with his right foot, but is good enough on that right foot and tricky enough that he can still create space and get defenders to bite on him going to his left foot. If you can do that, then go for it. Why not?
Well, that's what's going to happen, I think.
All right.
So that's my prediction.
So that's what's going to happen. One of the Portland center backs is going to bite on the left foot, and he's going to take it to his right and shoot. There it is.
Yeah, Stephen Taylor won't have done his homework. So no one's told him this kid will not shoot with his left. All right, so that game is Sunday night. It's on Fox Sports 1. It is 9:30 Eastern kickoff, or it's listed as 9:30 Eastern kickoff. I'd recommend tuning in maybe 5 minutes early. Try and catch the TIFO. TIFO game is always strong and usually kind of funny when these two teams play each other, right?
Yeah,
a lot of thought goes into it.
And I do think for all the reasons we mentioned, as well as the fact that you're probably going to have that return to that midfield three of Valeri, Chara, and Nagbe, I think it's going to be a really exciting game. So Portland fans, don't just be sad because your center back play might be a little bit shaky. Know that you've got Adi Smash and a strong midfield, and it's going to be a good game to watch.
I forgot we didn't talk about Darlington Nagbe. US fans, this is a great game to watch. If you're a neutral US fan, you've got no rooting interest in the Cascadia thing. You can watch Darlington Nagbe play for one team, Jordan Morris play for the other team. You're pretty much looking at the future of the US national team.
There we go.
If all goes according to plan.
If all goes according to plan. That's a big old if all.
So that's Sunday night, and obviously we'll check back in on Monday when we have the review show for the Total Soccer Show.
Is plan.
There are other games this weekend, though.
Quite a few.
And we are starting, I believe, a recurring segment, if this goes well, I guess we'll see, on TSS, what to watch this weekend and why. Here's how we did it. We put the call out on Twitter last night, not even early last night either, late last night, and said, hey, let us know what should people watch this week and tell us why. We got some great responses, and we've arranged them in alphabetical order, chronological order. And here's what's coming up, Taylor. I'll get us started.
Sure.
We got a tweet from Zach, who is at Zach Dix on Twitter. He says, Man United versus Southampton, which is Friday, 3 o'clock, NBC Sports. I mean, it's probably going to be happening soon after you download this show. And he says, for Paul Pogba. So you're the United fan here. Paul Pogba plays this weekend?
Yes, if you count Friday as the weekend. Yeah, and I think in one of the more, like, if you read a minute by minute, it's going to be one of the more surreal minute by minute, like, sentences if you read it like 6 months ago. Yeah. Because it's probably going to be Fellaini off, Pogba on, and you're going to be like, wait, what? What's happening here? Paul Pogba plays for Man United. Why is Fellaini starting ahead of him? Yeah, it's going to be one of those. That would be my guess.
So you think he's going to play like 20 minutes or something?
I think so, because by all accounts, he enjoyed his time off. And, I mean, it's still Paul Pogba, is still young, is still very fit, but I think is still maybe not entirely match fit. Having said that, watch him play the full 90 and score 5 goals.
I'm predicting a cameo for
I think
Pogba,
so.
like 10, 20, maybe 30 minutes. All right, next up, Robert at Sunny SoCal Rob25.
I go with Robert C25.
Robert C25, okay. Says, Sweden v Germany gold medal match at the Olympics, Friday, 4:30 Eastern, NBC Sports.
Yeah, winner could decide who's the best to coach a women's national team, Sundhaga or Need. We can check their records and see what happens.
Well, Robert says check their records because I think he's saying these are the two greatest of all time. This is the decider.
Yeah. Well, Jill Ellis would like a word.
I'm interested in this to see if what Hope Solo says if Sweden win the tournament. Because she didn't expect Sweden to go all the way, right? Obviously, she said they won't go far playing like that. They've gone to the gold medal game.
Sure have. Yep. It's almost like Hope Solo maybe puts her foot in her mouth from time to time.
But that game is Friday at 4:30, the gold medal match, the women's Olympic soccer tournament.
James,
more on the Olympics later.
Yeah, James at XCova on Twitter suggests Barcelona v Real Betis. That's Saturday, 12:15 on beIN Sport.
Because it's the first La Liga fixture, and Barca games are always exciting. I checked into how Barca were lining up in the Super Cup against, I believe, Sevilla. And we had a front three, because Neymar's off at the Olympics, of Suarez, Messi, and Arda Turan.
Yep.
Part of the front three. Were you expecting that?
Well, yes and no, given that Neymar's not there. But there are also rumors linking Arda with a move away this summer. I think that might just be rumor mongering. Who knows? But I think he's the one that makes sense to come in. And then I imagine we'll see some of those Barca youngsters as well.
Yeah, I want to see Munir. That's who I want to see play like as part of that front three. I also want to see Umtiti, but it was Piqué and Mascherano played centre-backs. So,
it'd also be interesting to see the goalkeeper situation.
Oh, because Claudio Bravo's on the way possibly, right?
On the way possibly to Man City, yeah, which means Ter Stegen will hold it down, injuries and performance permitting.
Next up, Leicester v Arsenal was recommended by Andrew. Andrew_Thunder with 2 R's on Twitter. That game is Saturday, 12:30 on CNBC. Oh, because the Olympics, they move it to CNBC. Okay. So Andrew says, obviously Leicester v Arsenal, the champs try to regain their mojo against an Arsenal team trying to bounce back. Also recommended by Chris Bentley, at Chris Bentley 13. Leicester v Arsenal to see if Ranieri starts to tinker because of the whole result and the lack of Conte. And last but not least, Portland Timbros, the Portland podcast, says, get a look to see Mahrez and Vardy thanking Arsene Wenger for their new contracts.
Yeah, and I'm especially excited for this game just because it seemed like Hull maybe figured out Leicester a little bit, knew how to play against them. Leicester a little bit shaky, not taking those chances. Arsene Wenger, not exactly the team or manager that are going to change their tactics to suit the opponent.
They probably should.
They should, but they probably won't. So this one I do think will be more wide open than that whole game with lots of opportunities at both ends.
I'm interested. I've seen Arsenal change their tactics to play Manchester City, for example. It would be like a big swallowing of pride to do it against Leicester, right? Because what you need to do is do what Hull did, sit back, and then you be the team that counters as opposed to be the team that takes the risk and lets Leicester counter on you.
It does feel a little bit like Arsene Wenger is in trouble no matter what. Because it's like you change your tactics and you win. It's like, oh, well, where was this before? Why are you doing this now? You don't even have enough strong enough team. You have to change against Leicester. Change and lose, obviously that's bad. Don't change and lose, that's also bad.
I've got this weird thing that has Vardy goal written on it, just because that's the way the narrative tends to shake out.
Vardy goal from Mahrez, and then the Portland Timbros are correct.
Yeah.
Yep. It's possible. Also suggested Saturday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN, NYCFC versus LA Galaxy. Michael Lazar notes it's an England reunion. Frank Lampard versus Steven Gerrard and Ashley Cole, both near the top of the Supporter Shield race as well. Similarly, Chad Christopher says LA Galaxy on an unbeaten streak, NYCFC with Villa and Lampard in form, the only MLS game on TV that I get on Saturday.
So for Chad, that's definitely the MLS game for him. All right. Also on Saturday, 4:30 Eastern. So Chad will have to switch over maybe at halftime. Brazil versus Germany in the men's Olympic soccer gold medal match. This is going to be on NBC Sports. Chris Tobin, C_Tobin, Tobin, gave us a great summary of why this is worth watching. Because 7-1 is the first thing he says. Right? That 7-1 defeat in the semi-final happened in Brazil. Brazil hosting the World Cup. Brazil have never won the Olympic gold before. This is a chance to sort of take at least some semblance of restoring balance to the force in Brazil by winning the gold medal against Germany. It maybe washes clean what happened 2 years ago.
No, it doesn't, but maybe.
Chris also makes clear that Brazil has 3 silver medals and 0 golds in Olympic soccer. It's the only tournament the men's team has never won. Finally, he says, Maracanã, sold out, Brazil at home, what could possibly go wrong?
Oh boy. Oh boy.
There is a possibility for another disaster.
There is precedent, yes.
It's also just a good game in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
So Brazil have Neymar. They're playing that sort of 4-2-4. Did you see the first 15 seconds of Brazil versus Honduras in the semi-final? Neymar scores after, I believe, 13 seconds.
Yeah, that'll happen.
Honduras are like about to pass the ball out the back, and he just charges, tackles, and like bumbles the ball into the net, and Brazil are away.
Poor Honduras.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing. It's like, all right, all we got to do is set up, play strong, and they've scored.
And I've got to say, we haven't been watching the men's Olympic tournament, but just looking at highlights and looking at the players in this game, it's going to be exciting. Marquinhos is there. You know, Marquinhos played in the Copa America and then does double duty and now is at the Olympics.
He is warrior.
On the Germany side, this is Germany's Olympic team. It's full of TSS Scouting Network players. You've got Serge Gnabry, Max Meyer, Ginter, Sula, and Brandt are all in that Germany team. So all this young talent that's coming through Germany.
Just stop it.
Please stop it. Please give other people a chance. I guess they are. They give America some of their players, right? The other, seriously, that's the way that's shaken out, right?
Yeah.
They also, you remember after the
I don't
World
think
Cup,
they give them to us, but sure.
but the high level of quality means that they can afford to let Fabian Johnson play for America, basically. Remember after the World Cup, we were talking about how Germany didn't have a number 9, right? Because Gomez got injured, Klose had retired, and we put the call out on Twitter.
Retire from international duty.
Yeah,
before we hear about that one.
We put the call out on Twitter. Who could they play as number 9 instead? And 2 of the names mentioned were Davy Selke, who's at Red Bull, or Lawn Sports, as some people call them, and Nils Peterson of Freiburg, were the 2 sort of big centre forwards that we mentioned. These guys are in this team. They are pretty much taking it in turns to start at number 9 and score multiple goals.
So, compelling game. Is that where we've landed?
It is, because you see the future of Germany, which is like exciting and terrifying, and then it's Brazil's big moment. I believe Germany have never won Olympic gold either. Just 2 great soccer nations.
Yeah, alrighty.
I will stop banging on about the Olympic gold medal match. But watch it, Saturday, 4:30, NBC Sports.
Speaking of Saturday, moving a bit more domestic, though, Saturday, 10 p.m. on MLS Live, you've got Real Salt Lake versus FC Dallas. Chris Johnson says Nick Rimando potentially winning MLS goalkeeper of all time. Because
FC Dallas are in incredible form.
Yep.
So basically he's just saying it's going to be Nick Rimando. Shot to the left, shot to the right, and he's up again, he saves again. Yeah, it's not on the regular TV, though, unless you live in the Real Salt Lake market.
It is not. Nor is HSV versus Zwickau, which is on Monday afternoon. Aaron Johnson suggested this one. He said HSV versus FC Zwickau German Cup, or DFB Pokal, if you want to get technical. Monday because it's my birthday, and it's awesome to watch a club called Hamburger. It's also awesome to watch a man named Bobby Wood.
That's the real reason. I mean, happy birthday to Aaron on Monday, but really we want to watch Bobby Wood. We want to see Bobby Wood in action for Hamburg, his new team with Alan Halilovic, who I really hope they become best buddies and assistant goal buddies throughout the season.
I'd be okay with that.
So maybe a Bobby Wood birthday goal for Aaron Johnson.
That'd be nice. A few more others to note before we move on.
Oh, look, someone's added Birmingham v Wolves.
Yeah, Saturday at 10 a.m. on beIN Sport Connect.
Yeah.
Are you excited for that one, Mr. Grove?
Big local derby. I am. So normally, I'll walk the dog and stuff on Saturday. We're going to Fetch Fitness on Saturday morning, my wife and I and our dog, which is a weird, fitness class that also involves dog obedience training, and we have scheduled it out so we are back home for 9:55 latest.
Let me ask you this. Did you explain why you need to be home, or were you just like, it's really important that I be home at 10 a.m. for work?
Oh no, Shannon understands.
Okay, cool.
She understands Wolves.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if you'd gone that far with it. My other question for you: what is? And I'm sure it's a low, but I'm wondering if you say 0 or if you give me an actual percentage. Percentage likelihood we see Mario Balotelli in the stands for this game.
I'm going to say 0 because they're away. Mm-hmm. It's at Birmingham City, so he wouldn't show up at the opposition team's ground.
All right,
yeah.
0% you say.
0%.
Okay, but maybe next week.
Maybe on the field next week.
There we go.
Yeah. So have we touched on this yet? We talked about this on Wednesday's show, right?
Yep.
About Balotelli being linked with Wolves. There's also part of the story it's developed that it's Mourinho who's advising him to go play for Wolves.
Strange, right?
Not really, because Mourinho means also George Mendes. Right? Which means Wolves.
Yeah.
So you can always tie it back to George Mendes at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I think Mourinho also said some things about his attitude and how he needs to get his ego in check. Mm-hmm. You know, some reality check from Mourinho. And I was terrified when I saw that. I was like, why is Mourinho talking about Balotelli? Why is he... That doesn't need to happen.
I thought he was coming to United.
That does not need to...
Yeah.
Zlatan plus Pogba plus Balotelli equals explosion.
Yay.
More games to look out for. Swansea v Hull, Saturday, 10 a.m. on NBC Sports.
So I added this to the other games to watch because we were so sort of down on Hull, and then they beat Leicester and looked really good doing it. I'm starting to think there could be a story here, right, of Hull being this like surprisingly impressive team.
Yep.
And then we got an email from Arthur de Camp. It was a great email, Arthur. Thank you very much. He's a Hull fan. I don't think he explicitly said that, but reading his email suggested he was. The idea being that there are only these 13, 14 senior team players, and he's saying they've suddenly become super tight, right? They're always tweeting at each other, big team huddles before games. And it made me think of Leicester last season. Remember one of the things we talked about in the preview was Leicester could basically pick the same 11 every week, and that's what made them so strong. We may be seeing the same thing with Hull.
All right, so Daryl Grove predicts Hull City to win the Premier League this year.
Curtis Davis to be player of the season.
Oh, speaking of players of the season, sad to report, Sadio Mane's chances of getting that have taken a hit.
Why?
Out with injury for, I believe, at least a few weeks, if not a month or so.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he's picked up a knock. Not
dear.
great in training, I think. So we'll see how that progresses. We'll also see how Real Sociedad versus Real Madrid plays out. That's Sunday, 2:15 p.m. on beIN Sports.
I added this one as well because I want to see what's going on with Real Madrid.
Yep.
You've got Morata and Benzema, who's going to start. You've got James Rodriguez, hasn't moved anywhere, is apparently in the shop window.
Yeah.
Someone buy James and build a team around him.
Yeah. And
Wolves, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, why not? What could go wrong?
But just watching him in the Copa, just seeing what happens when he's the central figure and not this weird peripheral figure, he can be the centre of a beautiful team.
Yeah. Two more things to keep an eye on this weekend and just generally in the season. A team that I'm really excited to watch, two teams in Spain. Sevilla, I want to see what they do under Jorge Sampaoli with, all the things that he's going to bring to that team. I think they're going to be very exciting.
They have Kranovita on loan.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Oh, so exciting. And then the other team that's worth keeping an eye on is Valencia, not just for what they offer on the field or what they're doing this weekend, but there's a really great article in The Guardian that focuses specifically on Nani, and I think the headline is why signing my Manchester United contract was the worst decision I ever made. And it's a very good insight into who he is as a person and as a player. Forgot that he's kind of reclusive, doesn't give interviews. So it's interesting insight into his mindset, what he was hoping for when David Moyes became manager, how that fell apart, and then how he's kind of come from there. It's very interesting and makes him a bit more of a compelling figure. So that's worth checking out. Also worth checking out, we haven't talked about, we didn't get really any emails about, is the fact that Serie A kicks off this weekend well. And congratulations to Juventus for winning the title this season.
Are we sure?
Yes.
You really?
Yes.
Because Inter conceded multiple goals in pre-season.
Well, so to the extent that Roberto Mancini is gone, Frank de Boer has come in, has made some big signings. The biggest one, I still think, with everyone they've signed for a lot of money, remains Ever Banega. Coming in on a free, I think that's going to be very big. But De Boer himself has said it's going to take him 4 months to get that team up to speed.
Really?
Roma still strong, but not very deep. Same thing for Napoli, who've lost their biggest striker
to Juventus,
who also have Miralem Pjanic.
Higuain looking at the biggest striker, even bigger over the summer.
Yeah, a little bit.
Based on a couple of photos I saw.
Yeah, and that'll be the interesting thing is how he fits into that team because they don't necessarily need him, but obviously he's a big talent. I expect Blaise Matuidi comes in, Dani Alves on a free. Mehdi Benatia, who was Roma's best defender a couple seasons ago, is now going to be their fourth choice defender, essentially. Yep. So a very strong team, got stronger and deeper.
It looks like you've been doing some Serie A previewing, some solo work.
Yeah.
What about Milan?
Milan or Milan. I mean, I think they're still in a state of flux.
Carlos Bacca still there?
Carlos Bacca, very strange. I think basically just really didn't want to leave. And so he kept having medicals and being about to sign for West Ham, that has fallen through. Carlos Bacca is there and is excited to be playing for Milan this season.
All right. Oh, final note, West Ham, first game at Olympic Stadium this weekend. I think against Bournemouth, 60,000 people could crowd in there.
Green running track and all.
So we'll see what the running track looks like. All right, Tyler, we've got some listener questions to get to later on the show. But first, today's sponsor is Fuji. Today's show is sponsored by the good people at Fuji.
It is. Fuji makes the engineered rebounder that combines squash and soccer. And when you play it in the heat, it combines fitness.
So, yeah, we went and played Fuji. When would it be? Tuesday morning. In the sun.
Yep.
We got a little bit burned. That's our fault.
Yep.
Because we spent too long out there. Because it is weirdly addictive to play Fuji.
It's weirdly addictive, but it really is far more, because it's like a small square that you're standing at. It's a larger square than you expect. But you don't expect it to be quite so physically demanding, because it's just like, I'm just kicking the ball into a net. But you're like up on your toes the whole time. You got to be alert the whole time.
Short burst, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it really kind of takes it out of you. And then that sunlight takes the battery out of our camera. So then we have to wait for it to recharge. So initially we were like, we'll be there at 9. We'll get it done early before it gets real hot. And then I think it was you, once the battery recharged again, you were like, hey, we're going to go play from 11 to 12. What could go wrong in 97 degrees?
It was 12 to 1.
Oh, goodness gracious.
So, yeah, that video has not been published yet, and that is my fault.
Because you're still recovering from heat stroke?
It will be published later today. I'll add the link to the show notes when we have it, but check our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Total Soccer Show, to see us playing a Fuji battle and maybe some freestyling.
Right, yes. We can check out those things. But I also want to talk about the scenario in which we played, because we played at Browns Island here in Richmond. It's surrounded by the water, the James River and the canal. And a surprising number of people walking around in the mid-morning in downtown Richmond.
Staring at their phones?
Exactly. So I was like, it's people on their lunch break. It's not. It's people out playing Pokemon Go. And that's fine. Play Pokemon Go if you want to. But, I don't play that. I haven't played that, despite what somebody posted on Instagram, you jerk. But I saw somebody, run to the middle of the field, maybe 30 yards away from us, and then, frantically do the thing that you do where you throw the ball and it catches the thing.
Yeah.
And so there was clearly a Pokemon there. And so the next person that came walking up, they were very, not sure where to go. And then I was like, oh, are you playing Pokemon? There's one right there. And the girl just stared at me like I had 4 heads and was a monster. So Pokemon Go, people, be friendlier. Come on.
If you're a monster, she would have captured you.
That's a good point, yeah. Maybe that's what it was. She's like, you look very realistic for a Pokemon.
So maybe what we're saying is, if you've got kids who you think maybe should be a bit more active and not staring at their phone walking around all day, Fuji may be a good way to get them outdoors doing something that's non-digital.
Yeah, I think it really is. It's because it's really fun, but it's really competitive, and it's the type of thing that you do.
It's right. We try not to be competitive, but it does always veer that way.
A little bit, but I just mean more so. It's the type of game where once you start playing, that's usually what it is for us. It's we're going to set it up, we'll play for an hour, and then we'll go record a show. We'll go do this, and it sort of becomes let's play for another hour. Well, let's try this game.
Best of 5.
Yeah, exactly. It goes best of 3, best of 5, best of 7, best of 412. It just keeps rolling.
So if this is the first time you've heard us talk about Fuji, just a very quick explanation of what it is. It's a rebounder net that is set up with a court in front of it, and then like squash, you take it in turns. You have to volley the ball into the net, it comes back, then your opponent has to return it into the net, and it comes back. And you just keep going until someone loses.
That's how it works. And it's, again, slightly addictive. And if you would like to get one of those Fuji rebounders, you can do so. Go to
Fuji.com.
There we are.
FUTCHI.com. I've been told, hello Mike Moon, I've been told that when I say it, it sounds like I'm saying Fuji. It's Fuji, FUTCHI.com.
There we are. You can use the promo code Total Soccer, all one word, all lowercase, at checkout to get 15% off your order.
Thank you to Fuji for sponsoring this episode, and check out YouTube to see us in action.
And keeping me fit, I must say, because between the show and moving house, I'm not really getting out in the sun a lot, not really doing a lot of fun physical labor as opposed to just heavy box lifting and board nailing. So I enjoyed being able to run around for a bit. Thank you, Fuji, for that.
All right, Tyler, we have 2 listener questions, which we're very excited to get to. First one, we've been teasing it for 2 days because we're into it, right? It's from Mark Bajarski. Mark emailed to say he busted out the Nintendo 64 the other day and played FIFA 98, Road to the World Cup. the one with the Blur song.
Yep.
You know what he's talking about?
I sure do.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah.
And it got Mark feeling nostalgic. So he asks,
I can't believe this is the game that got him feeling nostalgic, because this is one of the more frustrating games for me, I have to point out.
why is that?
Because I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure it was 98. Pretty sure this was the year that they split it, and they made it so you had like the FIFA club game, and then you had the World Cup game. And it used to be that the two were combined, and so you could do World Cup qualification or you could play a league game. And then this was the year that you had to split it, and you could either do one or the other, and you had to buy two different consoles.
Well, exactly. You could buy
or
two
not
different
consoles,
games.
but games, yeah.
Clever people, aren't they? EA Sports. So anyway, that got him feeling nostalgic for 98. Mark's question is, what is your golden era of soccer in England and in the world? And a bonus question, if you could go back to play in any era or league, when and why? Mark says he would play in England in the 60s because, one, he's a Spurs fan, and two, he would look great in those shorts. So Taylor, let's start with the first part of the question. What's your golden era of soccer?
Okay. I think it's probably the 90s or 2000s, but I'm going to take it a bit deeper, and I'm going to say the 1960s for me is the golden era, the golden decade.
Why so then?
All right.
England World Cup win?
Yeah, that's
Really?
definitely a part of it. So between 1960 and 1970, you have the first Euros, so you get to see Lev Yashin playing in goal for the Soviet Union. Can't go wrong. That decade ends in
64, was that?
1960 was the first one.
Wow, all right.
And then the decade ends in 1970 with Brazil winning the World Cup, that 1970 Brazil team, which are pretty decent.
So you're taking this 10-year stretch?
Yeah, because in between you've got 1962, Pele in Brazil. You've got 1962 European Cup final, Eusebio's Benfica, defeating Di Stefano and Puskás's Madrid, who won, I think, the 61 final, 7-3. So you've got
Frankfurt,
so you've got crazy good European competitions in there. You've got 66, you've got England winning the World Cup, you've got North Korea knocking out, was it Italy, I believe?
Yeah,
so that's the crazy drama there. 67, Celtic in the Champions
Lisbon
League final.
Lions?
Not Champions League, but European Cup. 68, for me personally,
European Cup for United,
Manchester United. So I think, and then if you look at those names, so you've got Di Stefano, you've got Puskás, you've got Pele, you've got Charlton, you've got Best, you've got Bobby Moore. You've got so many like big, huge names in there that kind of resonate with me personally. That's the decade I would go with.
Plus the Beatles.
Also them.
On the radio all the time. You can go see them live. That's
and
what you
the
should
fifth
do.
Beatle. And the fifth Beatle.
Who's the fifth Beatle?
George Best.
George Best. El Beatle. Okay, so for me...
Eusebio in there, by the way. I forgot to list him.
In the Beatles?
Well, no, just in terms of those players that I've like always... I wish I could see play
I see.
with my own eyes. Eusebio's well up there in that list.
For me, the golden era... is I think when I lived through, it was the start of the Premier League. This is like the early and mid 1990s. And here's why. It was like a palpable sense of excitement about soccer in England that wasn't there before. People were kind of sick of soccer and hooliganism, and it was kind of a dull thing in the late 80s. All of a sudden, all this money's in the Premier League. It's still mostly English and British and Irish players. But then you start adding in these random big-name foreigners that before you'd only heard about. You know what I'm saying? So suddenly, Ruud Gullit is in the Premier League, and Gianluca Vialli is in the Premier League, and Gianfranco Zola is in the Premier League. And it's amazing to see these players who have like a bit of flash and flair that you haven't seen before if you've been watching football.
I always go with Anfield Rap was, 88 or 89?
Yeah.
And I always love that like the point of that song is that they're not from Liverpool. It's this crazy international team from disparate corners of the universe. And it's like Ireland and Scotland and one guy from Denmark and one guy from Australia. It's like that's how crazy international they are. So yeah, I totally take your point that then all of a sudden you've got all these different players coming in with different styles and different managerial approaches.
And it's massively...
And also money.
It's massively exciting. Yeah, just to see something begin to get glamorous. And I think it's like this tipping point thing.
Yeah.
Because now you can say... There's too much money in the Premier League. People can say there's not enough English players, there's not enough English influence, and it's too, it's all too glitzy, right? But there's a tipping point when that just starts happening. There's that sweet spot where it's fresh and exciting and new. And I lived through that as a teenager. And again, this may be like Mark's nostalgic for Road to World Cup '98 because maybe he was a teenager or a young guy then, and just. You think the golden era is your golden era?
Yeah.
Really, golden eras are about you usually, right? And how you're feeling in that time.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, if you look at the period that you're talking about, you've also got it's Liverpool's last title win, 1990. Then you've got like Manchester United coming through. You've got Arsenal winning titles. You've got that Blackburn team coming in. So you've got different teams doing different things and winning titles for it. So I think that's also a compelling reason for that to be a pretty decent golden era.
And then again, if I could have like maybe a second choice of something that wasn't in my lifetime, because I do have to accept that maybe that's the golden era.
I know what you're going to
it's
say
my
before you say
golden
this.
era. Do you? What am I going to say?
I'm going to say anything relating to like the 1970s Dutch team.
Yeah. I would love to be watching some Dutch soccer in the early 70s with Johan Cruyff. But here's the twist I would like to put in it. I would like to live through that time with the access we have now. So I could watch
That's the biggest point. Yeah.
And I could read websites breaking down Total Football and what Rinus Michels is doing, and you know what I mean, like have podcasts about it, and like all that analysis type stuff. I think would be absolutely fascinating when applied to the 1970s, when something genuinely new was happening.
Yeah, and that makes total sense to me because we've found this out doing this show, that like if you do an all-time, like you and Ryan did that all-time US 11, right?
Yeah.
Like, and part of the problem is that it kind of becomes weirdly like people don't really care about the history because there's not a lot of footage of the 1950 team or the 19, you know, like you can't see footage, so you have to read a few different articles, but that's kind of the extent of the information that's available.
Yeah.
And if you're able to watch the 70s Dutch team play every single one of their friendlies and you get a podcast about it and you can read different opinions on it, it becomes that much more applicable and it resonates that much more strongly.
And because right now, you could argue that right now is the golden era of soccer because thanks to the internet and globalization, this is the first time that you genuinely can watch we're nearly at like maximum you can watch everything level, right? I mean, we're nearly there. So maybe this is the golden era for watching soccer.
And I think and then the other aspect of that is that if you say who are the best 4 players to ever play the sport of soccer, you're probably going to get Pele, Maradona, and then I think you're going to get Ronaldo and Messi.
Right.
And Pele, Maradona did not cross over. Ronaldo, Messi absolutely do. So you could make that argument as well.
I think they did cross over a little bit, but it'd probably be
not in terms of
very young Maradona in Argentina and aging Pele in New York.
Yeah, not quite the same. I'll say though, my answer for where would I want to play though.
Oh yeah, which area would you most like to play in?
Oh, I'm going real specific, and it shouldn't be a surprise to you. I'm going to say
CVSA 2016.
Exactly. No, my question is though, like, is it my current level of ability, or is it like no, you're like a young promising player?
Let's say that you are because in Mark's question, he's saying that he's playing for that Spurs team of the 60s.
Okay.
I'm going to say, with all due respect to Mark, he's probably not good enough to get in that Spurs team of the 60s.
All right.
So the mental experiment we're doing is if you're good enough to be part of it.
Okay, then I'm going to say I want to be.
Unless Mark was going to be in the team based on how good he looks in the shorts, that's possible.
That could be. But I'm going to go, I want to be a very talented youngster playing in the Manchester area in 1990, 1991.
Oh, you want to be part of the class of 92?
Because I want to get signed so I can win the FA Youth Cup in 1992, become one of Fergie's fledglings, and be one of the guys with their arm on the other guy's shoulder down the line. Yeah, that's where I am with it. That's the era I'd want to play in. With those, but I mean, sincerely though, not just so I could be in that team, but just like because if you watch that class of '92 documentary, it's all about those guys coming together, how they've stayed friends, how they stayed tight. You hear those stories about how like Beckham didn't like one of the things he didn't like about playing in LA was how he didn't have the team barbecues anymore. And it became like a less friendly, more professional environment.
They kept inviting him to cookouts, and he was like, that sounds crazy. I'm not going to that.
No, it's the other way around. It's that he missed the cookouts. It's that he missed...
No, I was joking that maybe he didn't know what the...
Oh, I see.
He didn't know what the American word for barbecue
I see. I don't want to cook outside. I want to grill stuff. Like, yeah, that's what we're doing, man. But yeah, and so I think like just for that kind of like tightness, that's the era I would have liked to come through. And then for the reasons you mentioned, the changes in the Premier League existing, money coming in, how different it would be from beginning to end. There we go.
All right. Yeah, you could just about get really rich as well, right? I would want to play...
Wait, is it the British or American sense? Just about.
You could... So
you could get rich.
Sense, you'd be right at the beginning of when there was big money coming in. You'd probably make some good. I mean, David Beckham did okay. Right?
Yeah, he's doing just fine. Don't worry about David Beckham.
So if I could play in any era, I think I would go back to the 1950s because it seems like that's the time when football genuinely was different to now in a really appreciable way. You know what I mean? There's still like weird formations happening that would be torn apart to pieces now, and like there's still this weird thing of everybody's style is different. Like there was an English style of like kind of long ballish type stuff that they thought was effective, and then Hungary come over and play this passing game and everyone's like, what are you guys doing? This is madness. So I would love to be playing on say an England and Wolves team, but being the guy that's like, all right, I'm gonna change history. I'm gonna introduce the passing game to England early.
This is my question though: is like, is this like time traveling? Like, do you have the knowledge you have now?
Yes.
Because I think that would be the problem. You would have the burden of knowledge,
Yeah.
where you would be like, that's not a soccer ball. Those are what cleats are supposed to feel like. That challenge is definitely a red card. What do you mean no foul given? Like, I think it would be that, because you forget about those things, that like that ball is leather, it gets waterlogged, it causes concussions when you hit it. Like it is problematic. It's a more physical, rough game.
I've just realised there's a nostalgia thing for me as well. Do you remember I'd got my dad's old cleats?
Oh, I remember.
And
yeah.
That leather soccer ball that would
nailed
give you a concussion.
on studs.
Yeah, I think seeing those makes me think, I'd like to play in this different era, this different game, and see what it's like.
Yeah.
And I think now the Cruyff turn would be known as the Grove turn, because I would do it in 1954. Yeah. The Zidane roulette would be known as the Grove roulette. There'd be a lot of things named after me.
The scorpion kick would be the scorpion kick a la Grove, not a la Aguita.
I'd be like Biff in Back to the Future.
you just take your almanac with you.
So my almanac of famous moves and just do them all.
I hope you'd also take the time to like invest in Google, or I guess 50s. What would you be investing in? I don't know, nuclear weapons.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I could also introduce gegenpressing.
Yeah.
People think I would say, who won the war?
I feel like that's going 0 to 100. Like maybe start with the passing game. I think is where you'd really need to go with that one.
All right, so I think we have successfully answered Mark's question. We had another question from John Adams, not that one, and it's about the Olympics.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have been wondering this. We've had some other people ask us on Twitter. So, John says, the Olympics is the largest competition in the world for just about every sport. So why is it played at U23 level for men's soccer? I'm guessing there is some sort of FIFA deal here where they don't want their tournaments overshadowed, so they probably paid someone off to muffle this tournament. I love the word muffle there. So John's question, apart from this Olympic background request, is, now that we live in a post-corrupt FIFA world, right, question mark, should the Olympics be a senior level tournament for the men as it is for the women? Why or why not? So should we address the background first? Because I feel like a lot of people have been kind of confused or intrigued by the status of the Olympic soccer tournament.
Let's do it.
So I've done the research. What's your sort of best guess take on why we have this weird thing where it's the men's tournament is U23 plus 3 overage players?
Do you want my gut answer or like my feeling on why?
Yeah.
Well, I think because I know that there's like an amateur level to it, because that's been an issue in other sports. The 1980 Olympic hockey team, the big thing was that they were amateurs defeating the Soviet Union. And that was the big deal. Then now it's professional. So I think it probably started as amateur, developed there. My gut answer, though, is that I think that men's soccer doesn't need it, is kind of the biggest thing. I would say most other sports, no disrespect to anyone who's a huge fan of swimming or badminton, but like you're not going to be excited for the World Cup of swimming in every other 2 years, basically.
But do you think that, say, FIFA paid off the IOC to say, hey, quit with the Olympic soccer?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just that, first of all, from the like kind of travel standpoint, it's the reason why the World Cup exists every 4 years, is because initially it was tough to get players to those tournaments. So I think it's an element of it's time consuming. It really doesn't fit with our schedule, so that's problematic. But I think it's also the amateur level is a big part of it.
So here's the history. I can give you the history. Up until 1932, the two tournaments are kind of on an equal footing, the World Cup and the Olympic soccer. Olympic soccer came first. I believe in the early 1900s, it was the World Championship of soccer, right? Once the World Cup is established, they're kind of competing against each other. Then you get to 1932, and soccer is removed. I think because they want to give the World Cup a bit more weight, and also because it was a long way to go to Los Angeles for all these teams, right? After this, it becomes amateurs only, right? So the World Cup is for proper soccer players. The Olympics is only for amateur soccer players. So every team would send amateurs. And as you mentioned with the hockey, so Soviet nations and communist nations absolutely dominated Olympic soccer, because you could be state amateurs where you're technically not a professional soccer player, but you spend your whole life playing soccer.
Right.
That's why the Soviet Union could win Olympic gold.
Yeah, that's not really fair. It's a slight competitive advantage.
It's a weird mix, right? And then later on you get things where Soviet nations are boycotting the Olympics, so then they're not in it. So there's this weird back and forth, right? Then you get to 1984 and they decide, okay, maybe we're going to try and mix this up. So at the 1984 Olympics, everyone's allowed to bring their full team except for European and South American teams because they're the dominant nations. They're not allowed to bring any players who have played in a World Cup. So that's an interesting wrinkle, right? That carries on to 1992.
That sounds terrible. Well, that just sounds like...
It's patronising, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're playing pickup soccer, but this team's better, so you guys can only use 2-touch.
Yep.
It's just like that's such a weird, rigged system for an official tournament.
So in 1992, they make it under 23s only.
Mm-hmm.
Then in 1996, they make it under 23s plus 3 overage players. So we have had this set of rules for 20 years now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's obvious that it's not always going to stay the same because it's a thing they keep messing with, right? But the basic thing is they don't want it to compete with the World Cup. It's not like it's not that anyone at FIFA bribed anyone at the Olympics. It's more like an agreement they have to not compete with each other.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah. But I think the frustrating thing, though, what I was getting at, though, with the...
Well, you were answering the second part of the question, so let's get to that, right?
Okay, cool.
The second part of John's question was, should it just be a full tournament because the Olympics is the pinnacle of sport? Should the men's soccer tournament be open age, all in, best team on earth wins the gold? Why or why not?
I think no, and I think because teams aren't going to send their best squads.
Right.
Because you have, I mean, as I just mentioned, Euros didn't exist until 1960, so you can understand why it wouldn't have been such an issue. Now it's an issue because you have the Euros and Copa America Centenario this summer. It looks like the Centenario format is going to continue to exist. So you're not going to have the U.S. and Mexico and Brazil and Argentina and Chile sending their best teams to that tournament and then their best teams to the Olympics. Same thing for the European squads. So you're always going to get a diluted team coming in. So I think it makes more sense to change the format again and make it players that have been capped before, or players that have been capped in a year, or like overage players. Like you can only have players over the age of 30.
I would kind of be in favour of doing away with it.
Yeah.
Because everything else at the Olympics, as John says, is it's the pinnacle of sport, right? It's the best 100-metre runners, which Usain Bolt and then all the other guys. But
and with that, I'll say like it's not just that every other sport has that. It's that's what the Olympics is.
Yeah.
And that's what I was getting at with
most.
like no disrespect to badminton or swimming, but it's like I'm like unless you are a dedicated fan of any sport, you're not gonna I'm not gonna tune in to watch the World Championships of swimming, but I'll be like, oh, Olympic swimming, that's what I can watch. That Olympic badminton,
but it's
sure.
also if you're Michael Phelps, or an Olympic track athlete, the Olympic gold is the storied thing. It's the thing you want, right? So you can win a World Championships, but you really make history when you win Olympic gold because the entire world watches, right? Soccer for Olympics is never quite going to have that. Even the women's Olympic soccer, which is open age, doesn't have that. Teams would rather win the Women's World Cup than Women's Olympic gold.
See, that's the difference, I think.
Yeah.
And that's why, and we've had that question about like why can the women's teams field their full squads? And I think it's because they needed to for the longest time because that was the pinnacle of the sport.
Yeah,
I think even
started in 96.
Yeah, I think even though started in 96. I think the Women's World Cup started in 91, correct? Yeah, so, I mean, it's been around longer, the Women's World Cup, but I think it only really started gaining traction in maybe 99. And so, I think, whereas the Olympics, because they are the pinnacle of athletic endeavor, it became this thing that people would go to be like, oh, women's soccer. It's the best women's soccer players. Awesome. And I think that is changing nowadays. And so, yeah, you could make the argument that maybe it's less necessary, save for the fact that it's money for the women's players that don't necessarily get compensated particularly well otherwise.
I think the women's tournament should be left alone. I think we should keep doing that. I'd be in favour of the men's tournament maybe not happening anymore. Or I'd go, if we're going to make some twists to it, I'd go with some real twists, like either it has to be amateur again or it has to be retired players. I'm always in favour of getting retired players out of retirement to come play soccer. So I would love there to be sort of an over 35 Olympic soccer thing, or maybe an over 40s Olympic soccer tournament, where you would get like Dennis Bergkamp playing for the Netherlands.
I think you could do. I mean, they wouldn't, but as long as we're throwing out half-baked ideas,
hey,
I love the ideas. I mean, you're not going to do a retired Olympics.
Why not?
Because why would you? Because, again, if you're talking about the pinnacle of athletic achievement, having players that are like, well, now they can come play in this tournament.
I got it. I think I've got it. So the thing they did with rugby this year.
That's where I was going with it.
Didn't reintroduce rugby. Oh, sorry. I'll let you say
yeah. But when I said as long as we're throwing out half-baked ideas, yes. It's the idea that maybe you change the format. So you have 7-on-7 or 5v5 or 3v3 or again, I know this isn't going to happen, but could be fascinating, a co-ed team. And you have the U.S. men's and women's teams playing together as like the nation of soccer, the men's and women's soccer coming together. That could be fascinating.
That's it.
And I would watch that. I mean,
I would
whereas
absolutely watch that.
I would watch the Brazil men's and women's team, whereas I haven't even watched the Brazil men's team in this tournament. I would watch
Saturday.
a co-eds team, yeah, for sure.
I think that's it then, co-ed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to go with like futsal or five-a-side or something like that. But co-ed would be an absolutely magnificent way to have Olympic soccer. Because it would be the pinnacle of co-ed soccer, easily.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And I mean, it's not going to exist anywhere else, so yeah.
Okay, we solved it.
We did.
Both of these questions were sent to contact@totalsoccershow.com. If you have a question for us, send it there. If you are a Total Soccer Show subscriber, you go to totalsoccershow.com/subscribe. You make a monthly contribution to support the show. If you go to $10 a month or more, we guarantee to answer one question per month that you send us.
We sure
That's
do.
totalsoccershow.com/subscribe. What else happens there, Taylor?
You can become a subscriber to the show. It makes sense. Subscriber. Yeah.
What does every subscriber get?
Every subscriber gets a young player to watch. We assign you a young player to scout, report back on, track their progress. And, I mean, some people use it as a way to follow their favorite team in a different way. Some people use it as a way to get into soccer in the first place, to start following a league that they otherwise wouldn't want to follow. Many different options, and you can let us know who you want to scout by putting it in the PayPal notes or emailing us after you've subscribed.
And we have, according to the sheet of paper in front of me, 5 scouting reports that have been emailed to us today.
And about 15 more waiting in the Gmail.
Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, so we've plenty more to come.
Yes, sir.
But we have 5 today. Who are we going to start with, Taylor?
Let's start with Michael Fisk, scouting Andreas Christensen. Christensen played the full 90 in Gladbach's 3-1 win over BSC Young Boys in a Champions League playoff match. It looks like he is going to be in the first team this season, and it looks like, based on that result, he will be playing in the Champions League this season.
Along with Fabian Johnson.
Yes.
Yeah? Is Christensen now an actual Mönchengladbach player? Wasn't that an earlier report from Fisk that he'd been signed permanently?
Yes, he has been.
He was on loan from
yes.
Chelsea, now he's a permanent Gladbach
Yes,
player.
and it was an ongoing transfer saga that appears to have finally reached its conclusion.
All right. Up next, Taylor Williams is scouting James Weir.
Good first name, Taylor.
The 21-year-old Weir started the first game of the Premier League 2 season. This is basically the under-23 reserves for Manchester United. He's playing a more attacking role and has been linked with a loan move to the Championship.
Yeah.
James Weir, I've never heard of this guy.
Yeah, he's a youngster. He's a talented star. But Taylor also adds that he that move is unlikely, just given like the kind of time constraints of the transfer window.
It's coming, right?
Yeah. Plus, maybe some Jose Mourinho trying to figure out that academy squad. This is my opinion. Jose Mourinho figure out the academy, doesn't necessarily want to send people out before he knows what's best for them.
Let's get to the next one. I'm excited for an update on Patrick Bamford.
Yeah, you should temper that excitement. Jeff Amelin reports that Patrick is nowhere near the Chelsea first team, and he is definitely going out on loan this season. He's been linked with Villa, which Jeff says is a bummer.
Well, didn't he have a great season in the Championship
a couple seasons ago?
Mm-hmm. He was Player of the Year or top scorer?
Yep.
He was one of those things, right?
Maybe both.
Patrick Bamford was magnificent for Middlesbrough in the Championship. I think Villa's a decent move for him, where he may end up as a teammate of DeAndre Yedlin.
It's possible.
The rumour today is that Yedlin is being linked with Aston Villa. I think that's a good move for Yedlin.
Yeah, and to clarify, Jeff wasn't saying it's sad news because it's Villa or anything like that. He was basically just saying because it's Bamford, who you made strong predictions for him last season.
I said he scored 10 goals for Norwich.
Yes, and then we had to amend that to who would score more goals, Wayne Rooney times 2 or Patrick Bamford, and Wayne Rooney. I think I still lost that because Rooney only scored 1 in that time period, and Bamford scored 0. but I think so. His point was that this is a player who had high expectations that everybody thought was going to be a Premier League player. Now it's like maybe he'll go to a championship team and maybe get some playing time.
All right, we shall see. Up next, Patricia Murphy is scouting Jack Byrne, Irish player, I believe, for Manchester City. Trish specifically predicts there will be a lot of on-fire headlines and tweets about Mr. Byrne, I see what she's done there, who is currently at Blackburn. He played in the club's championship opener against Wigan, but is maybe preoccupied by Sky's failure to install his cable. What's this about?
Oh, he tweeted out, it was a couple months ago, I think, before he had gone on loan to to Blackburn, and it was basically that he had signed up to get the cable package. Then they brought the box. Then they came to install it, but forgot the box. Then they had blocks on backorder. It was a whole big thing, but he was very frustrated. He took to social media to vent that frustration.
Jack Byrne, I feel like that's not what you should be doing as a professional player.
No, but I think it's also maybe maybe he's got the idea that, well, I'm a professional athlete that maybe people know, and maybe Sky will be so afraid of me making them look bad that they'll rush to get my order processed, which makes sense. Also, while we're on the subject of Irish players, because you brought up that point, we talked about Lyndon Gooch earlier in the week. I think in our clarifications that we had to make about Emerson Hyndman, for example, we didn't clarify Lyndon Gooch does have access to both the English and Irish national teams, but so far has only represented the United States at youth levels.
So from what I understand, he was born in California to parents, I can't remember which around it is, but mother and father, one is British, one is Irish.
Right.
Yeah, so, but he's chosen the US
for now.
So far.
Yeah, so far. But there's still those stories saying that Ireland coach wants to call him into camp to see what he's made of. And so, we'll keep an eye on it. Yes.
Like everybody else.
Yes. Let's get him a senior debut in these World Cup qualifiers, shall we?
Yeah.
Final scouting report came to us via Twitter from Mark Ryan, scouting Giovanni Simeone.
Son of
Diego Simeone.
Yeah.
Yep. The Argentine forward Simeone has moved to Genoa in Serie A. Mark wonders if his Spanish will help with his Italian.
So Mark speaks Spanish, but now he's going to have to follow.
Yeah.
Oh, and I assume Gio speaks Spanish.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's now going to have to learn Italian.
Well, Mr. X, a.k.a. Homer Simpson, says they're the same language, so it shouldn't be a problem.
So Mark's done a great job of sending us sort of goals when Simeone scores, and he really looks the real deal. And I know that he was on loan he was with River Plate on loan at a sort of not so good or not as good as River Plate Argentine team, banging in goals. This is a big move to see if he can cut it in Serie A.
New Olympic wrinkle. It's father-son duos. So Bob Bradley, Michael Bradley, Vladimir Weiss, and his father and grandfather, and then Gio Simeone and Diego Simeone. I like this tournament.
Slovakia would win that.
I think so. I'd back Gio and Diego over most teams.
True.
Yeah.
All right, if you would like to join the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network and support the show, help us keep making shows, you can go to TotalSoccerShow.com/subscribe. The lowest level is $5 a month. For that, we give you a player to scout. Go up to $10 and we guarantee to answer a question a month.
I'm still fascinated by the idea of father-son duos and who would be the best team. I'm thinking of Bidi Pele and Andre Ayew. That's a pretty decent...
And Jordan Ayew?
Ooh, that's a decent squad. That's a decent squad. I want to keep thinking about this. Maybe we should do a whole show.
Maybe let us know on Twitter.
Yeah.
Best father-son combos for the 2020 Olympics.
Yes, if both are in their prime or playing in their prime.
Or close, right? Because Diego Simeone, you can imagine, if he pulled on some cleats, still pretty good.
Yeah, I think so.
Still not bad at all.
I think so.
All right, Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, Mr. Grove.
Listeners, thank you for listening. Thank you to everybody who tweeted at us with recommendations of what to watch this weekend. Thank you to everybody who sent scouting reports. We will be back on Monday with our review of all the weekend action.